Hey everybody, welcome back to the Texas Legacy Support Network Show. I'm your host, Chris Doelle. This is Season 1, Episode 3. I know I say this all the time, but this to me is a very special episode. I get to sit down with Bill Atessis. Bill Atessis played a very important role on the University of Texas Longhorns defense that notched 30 straight wins. Number 77 played defensive end. He was one of the biggest men on the field. He came in at 235. I know that doesn't sound like a lot these days, but in those days, it was a giant. He was one of the key players on those teams that, as I mentioned, won 30 straight games. He was a consensus All-Southwest Conference player his junior and senior year. He was second-team All-American as a junior and consensus All-American his senior year. He was voted Longhorn Defensive MVP by the Dallas Morning News and the Houston Post in both 1969 and 1970. He was also a finalist for the Outland Trophy in 1970. When you look at anybody's list of the greatest Longhorn football players of all time, he's on that list. A lot of people remember those championship seasons because of the flashier names, the quarterbacks, the running backs, the coach. But a lot of people overlook that the absolute hero, the rock-hard, steady foundation of those amazing seasons was that defense. This defense, when the offense would slip, the defense would always hold strong and keep them in the game. And then, of course, the offense would come back with a dramatic win. That's what would get all the press. But it was these guys like Bill Atessis on the defense that just did their job, play in and play out. I will introduce you to Bill Atessis right after these messages.
Our last game, Friday Night Legends, was a big hit. And now you can play the greatest college football teams of all time against each other. Before now, if you wanted to see the 2019 LSU Tigers play the 2001 Miami Hurricanes squad, you were stuck with only your imagination. Not anymore. This new game allows you to play those dream matchups. 1945 Army Black Knights, considered by many to be the greatest team in the history of college football. 2014 Ohio State Buckeyes, featuring Ezekiel Elliott, head coach Urban Meyer, and offensive coordinator Tom Herman. 2005 Texas Longhorns knocked off number 1 ranked USC for their 4th national championship, and so many more. Saturday Legends is that game. What are you waiting for? Get in the game. Saturday Legends.
Get your copy at www.saturdaylegends.com.
Are you looking for a podcast network that talks Texas by Texans? Well, check us out. You're already listening to us, but go to the website, LoneStarPodcast.com. You can also find us on every big podcast platform. LSPN, we have shows in business, entertainment, marketing, music, of course, sports. We have some of the best sports podcasts in the state of Texas, ranging from high school football all the way up to pro basketball. So check us out online, LoneStarPodcast.com. That's the LSPN on every major podcast platform.
Now, the TLSN is not associated with the University of Texas. Instead, it is a free educational, historical site that is highly insightful about some of those great University of Texas athletics stories. In this show, we take some of the great visuals, the great stories, the great history that is contained on TexasLSN.org, and we try to bring them to life. We bring them to life by adding the voices of the people involved in the stories, as well as the people who were there for those stories. Anytime you hear something on the TLSN show, rest assured you can find it on TexasLSN.org. On this extremely user-friendly site, you will find much more information about the stories we cover here in the show. We are combining the best of both worlds. You've got the detailed narrative on TexasLSN.org, and here you get the audio direct from those people involved. My job is to bring the stories from TexasLSN.org to life and do that with audio. Your job is to enjoy the stories you hear and then dig in over at TexasLSN.org.
On the livelong day.
All right, everybody, join me in welcoming Bill Atessis to the show. Bill, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine, Chris. How are you?
I'm doing great. I get to talk high school football, college football, pro football. I get to talk so many cool football things. How could I not be good?
Boy, that's no kidding. And it's a shame that, of course, this pandemic is having such an effect on our sporting activities this year, because it is a great release for so many people, and I know it's frustrating.
No doubt. So let's start. I have you down. Several sources said that you were the number one lineman in the recruiting class of 1967. So what was that experience like, the recruiting then?
It was pretty overwhelming, really, because I had no – I was just a kid going to school. You know, I worked with my dad, and I just tried to take care of my business. And all of a sudden, I got people like Coach Doelle and Coach Yeoman and, you know, Gene Stallings or different guys were showing up at my house. You know, we lived in a real blue collar type neighborhood, and we weren't accustomed to seeing guys like that come around. But anyway, and next thing I know, like U of H was taking me. They recruited me very hard. And I really liked Coach Yeoman. He's a great guy. He's just a fantastic coach. But I was going out to eat at restaurants, having steak dinners just about once or twice a week. It was just going to the Astrodome to watch the University of Houston play. I even got to sit in Roy Halfein's personal box up there, which was quite a spectacle. He was quite the man that everybody makes him out to be. I mean, he was the reason the Astrodome got built. But I really had meeting Coach Doelle when I went to visit Texas. And of course Bobby Wunsch was up there as well. That's really I just really fell in love with the University of Texas and Austin, and that's where I wanted to go to school. Even though I had some offers from just about any school I wanted to go to, but and some of them were making it very attractive, and I'm not going to say who made this, but Coach Doelle said, you're going to get a scholarship, and that's all you're going to get. So, and that was fine. I was good with that, But no, it was quite an experience. It was. My father was getting pressure from his boss for me to go to A&M, and God bless him. I just didn't want to go to A&M at that time, and not anything negative about A&M. I just wanted to go to the University of Texas.
Right. And so I guess talk about that transition to being big man on campus in high school to being low man on the totem pole when you go to UT.
I never really got that sense of being a little man on campus because I tell you, our that class, I mean, we had Steve Wooster, Cotton Spire, Scott Palmer. We had a fantastic recruiting class. Matter of fact, I played against Scott Palmer in high school, and I'll never forget after the game, I literally lined up against him the whole game. I was going both ways, and I think he was as well. And so we battled the whole night. And I told Scott, I said, man, I hope we go to the same school together because I don't want to do this again, And he, as his luck turned out, we did. And it's funny you say about the recruiting thing. Coach Doelle, I'd already committed to UT, and Steve hadn't committed at that time. And so Coach Doelle asked me if I wouldn't mind talking to Steve, giving Steve a call. And I said, sure, I'd be glad to. So I called Steve, and really all we did was talk about football and the different visits we had. And I just told Steve, I hope, I look forward to playing with him as a teammate at the University of Texas. And fortunately, I got to. And matter of fact, Steve and I ended up being roommates our senior year together. But,
nice.
But anyway, as far as being a little man on campus, I really never had that sense. I was injured my freshman year, so I didn't get to play on the freshman team. I got injured in the Big 33 All-Star game. I broke my ankle and played about 4 or 5 plays after that, and I finally had to come out. But so I spent most of the year sitting in the just kind of watching the guys practice, and we ate at a dining hall there where they bring all the food, family style, and you kind of just help yourself. Well, I think I put on about 20 pounds that fall, and so going into the next spring, I was up to about 260 and needed some conditioning to get back in shape.
Right.
Frank Medina made sure that happened. Let me tell you.
No, well, that's what I was going to get into. What were those practices like? What was the experience there?
Well, Frank Medina was our trainer, and he we called him his training program the Medinas, and he literally put us through the ringer. He would, we did stadium stairs. We wore weight vest. We do the boxing on heavy bags. Just literally you'd work out until you just about passed out. And but Frank was always, his famous line was, "Show me what you got." Yeah, he didn't believe in quitting, and he gave it his best, and he expected the same from you. And Frank was a great man and a great trainer, and one of the reasons we were successful, because like Coach Doelle used to always say, close games are won in the fourth quarter, and that's and conditioning is why you can win in the fourth quarter. You have the ability to win in the fourth quarter. Right. So a very important part of the program. Frank was a very big part of the important part of the program, and of course those years also, Coach Doelle had just had my freshman year. I think that was their third 6-4 season, and there was a lot of I tell the story. A lot of people don't realize that he was under a lot of pressure. As a matter of fact, they were talking about cutting him loose, unbelievably. Yeah. But 3-6-4 season, University of Texas is not considered good.
Right.
And so you could tell Coach Doelle was under a lot of pressure to come up with a team that could win again and get in the national championship, or at least compete for the national championship. And sure enough, that spring training was a brutal one, because they were culling. There was a lot of guys that kind of drug up during spring training that year, but the ones that stayed turned out to be, the ones that really were willing to pay the price. And of course, we went on to win 30 games in a row.
Yeah.
The wishbone that we came out with, that Coach Ballard came up with, we were struggling. That the first season we opened with University of Houston in the 2020 tie, and I don't know how we ended up tying those guys, except for Chris Gilbert had some tremendous runs that night. But U of H they had a tremendous team, and it was a hot, humid night in Austin, and we were able to hang on there. I think the defense took 100 snaps that night, which back then that's a lot of snaps. And and then we went up to Lubbock and got beat by Texas Tech, and that's when Coach Doelle made the change from James Street from Bill Bradley. And as they say, the rest is history.
Nice. A lot of coaches, they don't really have much to do with the freshmen. What was your relationship with Coach Doelle as a freshman? Did he see that, hey, I've got these gems and I need to pay more attention to them, or it was like, I'll see you when you're on the varsity?
Yeah, I don't, other than if it was a discipline issue, I don't recall him coming down to our practices that often, or interacting with us. Coach Ellington was our coach back then, Bill Ellington, and I'm sure they had many conversations and watched film of the games and stuff, but of the freshman games. We only played a 5-game season back then for freshmen. And again, I didn't get to play in any of those games. But although I did occasionally, when I did finally suit up towards the end of the season, I finally was able to suit up, and I was practicing with a freshman, and Willie Zapalak, the offensive line coach for the varsity, came down and got me and took me up to the varsity practice, and he wanted me to go one-on-one with some of the offensive starters.
Uh-huh.
So I did, and again, I was fortunate enough to, I guess at that time they were doing a scramble block. That was what they were coaching, and
uh-huh.
I was always able to use my hands very well. So I had I was good at defeating a block when they were coming at my legs usually because I could use my hands so well. But that was about the only real interest I saw early on as a freshman. Yeah.
Right. And so you go from a freshman season, not starting in the freshman games, to a 3-year starter at the varsity level. What do you think was the big transition there?
The transition was they started me at defensive tackle. And honestly, I was struggling with that position. I just wasn't accustomed to it. And the biggest transition was that season after about 3 games. I think I started 2 or 3 games at tackle, and then they moved me out to end at the Rice game that year. And from then on, that was my position. I enjoyed playing the end position, and I progressed very well at that position. And Coach Campbell, he was a taskmaster. Our defense was basically, you were given a responsibility and you had to play that responsibility.
Uh-huh.
And so mine was containment. And he said, Bill, you don't let anybody get outside of you, and you keep you kind of keep the pressure on from the outside in, and our whole defense was predicated on the way we pursued is we forced the runner back to pursuit. I mean, if you go to tackle, you put your head on the outside of him, and so if you miss a tackle or slow down, at least he's got to cut back towards pursuit. And so containment was how we played defense back then, and we played our position, and it's very different from what they do today. But it was a very effective defense. I forget how many. We didn't give up many points over the 3 years we played there. And the Arkansas Classic, the '69 game, was a classic example of how, with 6 turnovers, we held them to 14 points, which is, yeah. And the other thing about playing defensive end, I really enjoyed playing the option. That was I loved it when I saw a quarterback coming down the line towards me, and he was looking to me to make the pitch.
The read, yeah.
Yeah, I was the guy he's reading, and so I would. But if I sat there on the line and didn't commit, kept my butt parallel to the line of scrimmage and didn't come upfield, and then I put him in the. He had to make a decision. So if he pitched, then I'd go out and help with the pitch guy, or if he kept it, I'd fall back in and make the tackle. But it all happened so quick, but yet it was a fun play to play. I really liked playing the triple option. And of course, I got plenty of practice against our own team.
Oh, I'm sure. So if you could talk about that '69 game, the game of the century, I've heard it called, the classic. I mean, it's a number 1 versus a number 2. Comes down to 1 point. I mean, kind of take us through that game and what you saw there.
Well, it was almost surreal when we even got to Arkansas. When we arrived at Arkansas, the weather was kind of overcast and cold and drizzly, and the people were very hostile towards us. they weren't real happy. I can remember, riding the bus towards the stadium to practice, and there were some signs out there that were not real favorable towards University of Texas, but a matter of fact, I think a lot of people that came up there were having a hard time if they had Texas plates on, were getting gasoline for their cars, you know. But anyway, it was a very like every game, we felt very confident in our abilities and the ability to win the game. I think no doubt we underestimated Arkansas's ability. Because they did have a tremendous team, and but when we got to the game that night at the hotel, I can remember having a hard time sleeping, which I never did. I got anxious about that game for some reason. I just, you could feel it in the air. It was just a very different environment that we'd ever been in, and when we got on the field, it was crazy. I mean, people were just, the President of the United States was at the game, and various congressmen and senators, and they were protesting the war around the stadium, and it was just a lot of things that were going on. But we were focused on the game and trying to tune all that out. And then, of course, the game started after the kickoff, and we were struggling. I mean, we were turning the ball over and putting them in good scoring position. But the thing about it is, I never saw anyone really panic. We just, again, Coach Campbell did a great job of just, Coach Campbell and Coach Doelle. Coach Campbell was a fighter pilot in World War II. He was. I know he was on some kind of fighter plane or rear gunner on a bomber or something. I forget exactly what he did, but I mean these guys, they were cool under pressure. I mean, you'd never know that we were down 14-0 by looking at them or talking to them, but he, at the same time, Coach Campbell, when you came off that field and you didn't do something right, he'd let you know right off the bat. But it was a coaching moment. He would tell you, Bill, you need to cheat in here, or you need to, watch this guy when he's coming out, or and don't let him get outside of you, or don't let him line up outside of you, and that kind of thing. But and the other thing that Coach Doelle noticed in that game was we were playing on AstroTurf, and originally we went out there with soccer shoes, and it was wet enough to where we were losing footing, and I'd experienced that several times, and we switched to cleats, and that seemed to help a lot too. But no, it was an incredible game. It was an incredible experience. Even though we were down 14-0 going into the fourth quarter, I don't think there was a player on that field, on our side of the field, that felt like we couldn't still win the game. And James Street was a big part of that game, no doubt. But I don't think the defense gets the credit for they deserve for winning that game, because again, 6 turnovers and 14 points is pretty amazing. But
yeah, definitely. It sounds, I've watched replays of the game and been amazed at, the offense made some mistakes, and everybody notices the dramatic comeback.
Yeah.
But you said it right there. Nobody really paid attention to the fact that the defense from beginning to end was solid. It just kept doing its job.
Yeah. And kind of another story of that game was Freddie Steinmark.
Yeah.
He was playing, with a cancerous bone in his leg that day, and been complaining about it all year. But of course, no one knew at the time that was the case. But Freddie wasn't near the player that he normally was because of that condition. And he made a great play in that he was beat, and he tackled the receiver before or had been a touchdown. He stopped a touchdown, and we eventually, I think after that, Danny Lester intercepted the ball in the end zone and ran it out of the end zone. Danny Lester had a great game. I mean, all of them: Glenn Hossel, Scott Henderson, Scott Palmer, Bill Zapalak. They all played tremendous that day, and we just never gave up. But I'll give Arkansas credit. They had a tremendous team. Bill Montgomery was a fantastic quarterback, cool cucumber, and I can remember several times on rollouts he would try to, he'd roll out to the right, and I'd be out there trying to contain him, and I did for the most part. And I'd tackle him right as he's either throwing or tackling while he still had the ball, and I'd get up and he'd pat me on the butt and say, "Good play, Bill."
Yeah,
and
nice.
It's that kind of sportsmanship that you don't see much anymore, but that was kind of the hallmark of football back then. Of Coach Roll's football, and in Arkansas as well. They both believe in sportsmanship, and I think that's that was an important part of life, developing that as a young man.
So, at a halftime of a game like that, what is the mood in the locker room? What is the speech that the coach gives? We always break up into offense and defense when we come in, and defensively, Coach Campbell was, he wasn't too upset. He thought we were doing a good job. But we were having a hard time covering Dykus that day. He was really having a good day, and then one of his sons was the one who's covering him. But he was just a tough kid to cover. He had a lot of speed and a lot of ability, and Bill Montgomery was a great pattern. But other than that, the offense, I wasn't sitting over there. I mean, turning over the ball, I don't know how you tell guys not to ball. But I know one thing, Coach Royal said this before the game, not after the game. He said, he was just saying that he made a proposition, and I don't think he really did this, but he told us that he went to to Arkansas and to the officials and said, "Look, if this game ends up in a tie, let us play an extra quarter or extra time to break the tie, or let's have a tiebreaker." And which, that wasn't in the NCAA rules back then. But he told us the story, and he said Arkansas declined to do that. And he said, if you don't think their sphincters are tight, So, that was kind of Coach Royal's way of giving us a boost that we're ready to take them on, and we're ready to do whatever it takes to win. But Coach Royal got a little emotional at halftime. Yeah, he was a little upset. But I've never seen a man happier after the game, because the coach wasn't a real emotional kind of guy. Coach Royal wasn't a real emotional kind of guy, but he was very emotional that day. Yeah, nice. And so you escape. Some say with a 15-14 win. Some say you just got back to normal and you did what you're supposed to do. But how do you get out of Arkansas alive?
Boy, that's no kidding. And not only that, the locker room, we had no hot water. I mean, other than, I guess, Nixon coming down there and just kind of making his speech and presenting the little trophy he did, that was about the highlight of that locker room, just getting out of there. And really, it wasn't, I don't recall that getting out of Arkansas being that bad an issue. But I'll never forget when we flew into Austin, the pilot came on the PA there and said, "Look, we're delaying our landing here because the airport's got about 20,000 people on the runway." So they had to clear the runway so they could land the plane. And then when we got off the plane, I mean, it was just a throng of people were surrounding us, and they actually, Coach Royal made a little speech, and then James Street came up, and I think James even sang a song. It was crazy. But I heard stories about the guys who didn't make the trip, and they said that the trip that night was just crazy. That even the policemen were drinking beer with them. It was the whole city of Austin was celebrating that victory.
Nice. And so you walk away with the national championship, and then the next season starts. So a lot of people, after a national championship, figure, oh, you're losing too much talent. There's no way you can do it again. how did Coach keep you guys grounded and say, you know, we still have winning to do?
He didn't change a whole lot of what we did. You know, the regiment we had and the attitude we have. We always felt like we were going to win a game no matter who we played, and Coach Roll was big on confidence, building confidence and preparing. You know, his old definition of luck was opportunity. Preparation meets opportunity. There you go. That was what Coach Roll always was big on, is preparation. We paid attention, or he paid attention to the kicking game. That was his big thing to promote and coach. Mm-hmm. And so we spent time on our kicking game because his philosophy was that's where close games are won, in the kicking game. And sure enough, I can't tell you how many games we played that were, you know, our punting got us and kept us in good field position, or our kick. You know, I don't ever recall a punt return being returned for a touchdown. Now, I could be wrong about that, but I don't. If there weren't many. And the same thing for a kickoff return. I don't recall that ever happening. He was big on the kicking game and making sure that we executed. And so the thing that we were fortunate about, we had the same coaching staff the whole 3 years we were there.
Yeah.
And so we had consistency with coaching and techniques. And the wishbone, we executed the wishbone as good as anyone. We had quarterbacks like James and Eddie Phillips that executed it as good as anybody in the country did. And we had guys that blocked, like Bobby Wunsch and Bob McKay and you know, Mike Dean and Bobby Mitchell, but that blocked as well as anyone in the country. So, and as a matter of fact, I'll never forget Mike Dean having to line up against that Notre Dame tackle, Mike McCoy, Dean was probably right at 200 pounds, mm-hmm. and Mike McCoy, I think, was right at 300 pounds. But that didn't stop Mike from putting him on his back occasionally, you know. So, again, it was that we just kept doing what we did that kept us successful, and blocking, tackling, and, you know, the basics. The thing that Coach Royal really worked on a lot was the basics, and then executing the plays. We didn't have a whole lot of plays that we ran, and we didn't have a whole lot of defenses that we ran. But the ones we ran, we knew, you know, we executed very well from.
Right.
Yeah.
And I guess talk about that 1970 season. The win streak still goes, but did you have some tight matchups in that one?
Oh, absolutely. We I forget what it was, the third or fourth game we played UCLA in Austin, and it was a hot, humid day, and they had a great quarterback. He ended up playing in the NFL as well. They had a good passing game. They're ahead of us 21. I think it was 21 or 17-14, I believe it was. They were ahead of us 17-14. And we're down to the last minute of the game. And Eddie Phillips throws a pass, and two of the UCLA defenders go up for the interception, and they knock each other off the ball. Cotton Spire catches it and runs, I think, about 40 yards for a touchdown. And the clock just about runs out, and we win 21-17. Yeah, I don't think there was probably like 30 or 40 seconds left. I forget. There wasn't much time left, and we were able to win. And I'll never forget, that was, to me, that was almost as exciting than the Arkansas game, because we thought we were going to get beat, you know, and but they were able to pull that play out. And then other than that game, I don't recall. I think Baylor kind of gave us a tough game that year, but for the most part, we played. You know, we had another replay of the Arkansas game that year in Austin, and we ended up blowing them out. I mean, we beat them, you know, about 3 or 4 touchdowns, or 2 or 3 touchdowns. It wasn't even close that year. So going into the Cotton Bowl, we felt very confident that was going to be another win for us, and I'm convinced that if Eddie Phillips doesn't go down, we do win that game. But we lost Eddie to an injury in the third quarter, and not to take away from Donnie Wigginton. He was a good player as well, but he just, he hadn't been playing all year and didn't get as much play time, and so we weren't able to pull that one out. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Nice. And then I guess finally talk about the Notre Dame game.
Yeah, we didn't like Notre Dame. Matter of fact, Eric Parsegan was their coach,
mm-hmm.
and they tried to kind of intimidate you physically and verbally on the field, including the coaches, their coaching staff. I went off the sidelines one time, and I couldn't believe what they were saying to me, and kicking at you and stuff like that, trying to physically intimidate you. But they were big boys, and they started out the game pretty well that year. They got up on us quick. As I recall, they scored. My recollection is they scored 21 points that first half. Theismann was the quarterback, and he had a good game, and he had good athletes, no doubt. They had some great receivers, and we were struggling on offense that year. They were shutting down our run pretty good, but Eddie was having a good passing day, and Eddie was an excellent passer. And so the second half, we come back, and I think we pulled within 21 to 17,
mm-hmm.
and then we're making a comeback, and I don't believe Notre Dame scored again after that first half. I could be wrong about that, but anyway, when Eddie goes down, we just not able to pull out the game. But they were there's no question Notre Dame had a great team. They were big players. They were fast. They were I'm not going to say they were dirty players. They just sportsmanship wasn't part of their program, I don't think. But that's fine. It was a tough loss for us, especially as seniors. We got pretty used to winning, but I remember Coach Royal saying after the game, he came up to me and he said, "Bill, it's sure been a pleasure having you play for me for the last 3 years."
Nice. And he's quoted as saying, when asked about you, as saying you were a super player who hasn't played a bad game in 3 years. I mean, that's pretty tall praise there.
Yeah, it is. I was just fortunate to play for that man.
Nice.
He's and the thing a lot of people don't realize is after you leave university, he helped a lot of us. I mean, he was just that kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
If you had some kind of struggle or you're in a business that you need some help, Coach will find a way to help you.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then obviously your college football career ends and you go into the NFL. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I was drafted by the Colts, Baltimore Colts back then.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of my dream. I wanted to play professional football. And I certainly liked, Johnny Unitas was one of my favorites. That whole Baltimore club was, and they had just won the Super Bowl that year. The year I got drafted from.
Uh-huh.
I ended up going to Baltimore, meeting Bub Smith.
Yeah.
And we had a good time together. Bub was quite a character. He was quite a character. So I ended up showing up to camp that year. I got married I think a couple of weeks right before I went to camp. And I got to tell you, I think I was part of it. I got distracted and kind of didn't. I got injured in camp, hurt a knee, and ended up. The Colts ended up cutting me that year, and I got picked up by the Patriots. And I went to New England and started playing with them that the rest of the season. So I played mostly on the specialty teams and. For the Pats, and then they traded me I ended up going to New York Jets, playing for Buddy Ryan with the Jets, and he was quite a character. and I played defensive end over there with him, and I really enjoyed it and was doing well. It's funny. I got to where I actually could have played with the Jets. I had the opportunity to probably start or play, but just got dissatisfied with the pro football game. Back then, the players didn't have near the influence or power they have today.
Right. And
the money was certainly not that good. So it was kind of a hassle, traveling back and forth to the city and then coming back home, and it was hard on my family life. And I just made the decision that I just didn't really care about playing pro football, and I quit playing.
Right.
I left it, but and to some degree, I regret it to some degree, especially if I'd have played another year or two, I would have got a pension out of them. But then when I was going through the CTE lawsuit, they were doing the exams for us, and like one of the guys said, he said, "Well, Bill, you never know. If you'd have played 2 or 3 more years, you might not be having this conversation with us right now." So it wasn't a good experience. Pro football wasn't a good experience for me, and I think a lot of it was I missed a lot of the things I enjoyed about football. Was that kind of that team environment, and it's more of an individual environment.
Yeah, if you could talk about what you did afterwards, after football is behind you. How'd you spend your time?
Well, I came back home and didn't really know what to do. I hadn't finished a degree at UT, so I just didn't really know what to do. I had been in the off season while I was still playing pro football. I was doing some insurance sales, but really wasn't doing that well at it, and just my heart wasn't in it. I just didn't realize what it takes to really be successful as an insurance salesman. I'm not knocking them. That wasn't me. I wasn't cut out for it. So I ended up just kind of bouncing around, and I got into the construction business. Because I actually worked as a laborer for a big construction company down in Houston, and as I was working down there, one of the guys, we got to talking. He said, "Oh yeah, I remember you playing football." And he was what they call a field engineer, doing the layout and doing the control for the construction for industrial projects. So he got me interested in doing that kind of work, and I ended up going back to school and working on a construction management degree. And so that's what I ended up, finishing that, completing that, and I've been doing construction management now for the last 30-something years, 35 years. So it's been good to me, and I enjoy it. It has a lot of similar feelings that playing football does. You're out there working with people and trying to get something accomplished and build something, and you got all kinds of adversities you got to work through, but that's what makes it fun. And so I did end up having a couple of children as well. I have a son and a daughter, 2 sons and a daughter, and they've been a blessing. And my wife Kelly has been a great part of my life as well for the last 30 years.
Nice. Awesome. So talk about your connection with the University of Texas since then. Do you stay connected with them? Do you have lifelong friends that you had from those teams?
Oh, absolutely. We matter of fact, I talked to Scott Palmer and Bobby Wunsch, Tommy Lee on a regular basis, but we used to get together at least we have an annual reunion up there at the spring game every year, and that don't always make that, but they have at that same time when they have that reunion, they have a Mike Campbell golf tournament. But we all kind of, it's amazing how that experience bonded all of us for life. Because even today, which blows my mind 50-something years later, or over 50 years later, we hear, I might mention my name, and I'll hear, "Are you the Bill Atessis?" You know, and I'm thinking, how could you remember that? You know, when I played 50 years ago, but that's the kind of thing that a lot of people back when we were playing, it wasn't just the people, the adults that were watching us; it was their kids that were watching us, and the University of Texas following is just amazing how well they support the sports and the program at University of Texas.
Amen. Bill Atessis, I want to thank you so much for sitting down with me, sharing some of your story with our listeners.
Hey, Chris, my pleasure. It's always good to talk about those days, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Hey, once again, I want to thank Bill Atessis for sitting down with me, sharing some of his story, letting me play a part in sharing this story. But I also want to take a second to talk about Coach Darrell Royal. You'll remember in the interview when Bill was talking about Coach Royal, he kind of got choked up. And he got choked up talking about the extra stuff that Coach Royal did for players. And it wasn't just for Bill. It was for so many players. And it was a side of him that a lot of people may not know. Yes, when he would recruit players, he would point blank tell them, "You're getting a scholarship. That's what you're getting. You're not getting a car. You're not getting a house. You're not getting cash under the table. You're getting a scholarship to play football." He was very clear in that. But what he never said, but always did, was he gave them so much more. In fact, after their football careers were over is when Coach Royal's character really shone. The key for him was if you gave 110% as a player, he would give that and more as a coach and as a friend even after the game is over. So again, you have a player who works his butt off all the time he's there, and then maybe comes up a little short on needing some extra hours to get his degree, or starting a business and needing some help getting things going, needing connections, whatever it is, Coach Royal would step up, and he stuck by his students. Again, long after they were serving him on the field, he was serving them as their friend, their mentor, and their lifelong coach. And once again, I want to thank you for tuning in, for giving me some of your attention, some of your time to help spread the stories of these great UT athletes. And if you want to help make sure that we are continue to able to tell these stories, to bring these to more people, we are looking for sponsorship. Yes, if you have a business or a message you want to get in front of this rabid, loyal fan base, reach out to me, Chris Doelle, 713-269-4620, and I will get you all set up. Or if you even know somebody who might be interested, get them in touch with me. Again, I want to thank you so much. I want to thank Bill Atessis. And as always, you can find out more about any of these stories over at the website texaslsn.org. That's the Texas Legacy Support Network, texaslsn.org. It is jam-packed with stories like these and tons of other great stories about UT athletics. And as always, keep reaching for the stars and don't stop till you get there.